Thank you very much, Melina, for those insights. As we said at the start, we'll keep questions and comments until the final session. Now it's my pleasure to call on two museum and gallery professionals to join me for a conversational review of their own family visits. Andrew Moritz joined the Queensland Museum as the inaugural director of the Workshops Rail Museum in December 2001. And the museum has established a reputation as a family destination through the development of major public programs and events such as Circus Train, Toyland Express, Wizards and Witches Express, and the ever-popular Friends of Thomas. Andrew is the father of two boys, Adam aged 4 and Benjamin aged 9. Ben has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair. Louise Martinchew, who's also joined us, is a senior arts writer who's worked in the visual arts industry for over 20 years. She's worked with the national touring agency Art Exhibitions Australia, has become editorial manager of Art and Australia Journal, and since then she's worked as a freelance writer from a Brisbane base. Louise is the mother of two girls, Tallis aged 9 and Leon aged 4, and one boy, Jasper, who's Leon's twin brother. So I'm just going to enjoy joining Andrew and Louise now. Yes, just get settled here. So just checking you can all hear us as we're talking. Is that going to work for you? Great. Okay, so from talking to these two, I believe that they have both taken their families on visits to children's exhibitions at Queensland Art Gallery. So Louise, I wonder if you could tell us first how family-friendly you found those visits.
Well, I think they're very family-friendly. There are many more opportunities to take children to galleries and museums than ever before. They, in fact, really are a destination in their own right. I would, certainly for the Andy Warhol, went to see the exhibition myself and then took the children back to the children's exhibition, and because the children's exhibition was free, I did that a number of times. So they're usually very good experiences, but if we're here to be critical, I'd have to say that sometimes they can be a bit stressful, which is often related to the fact that you're just kind of trying not to lose your children amongst the crowds. But a couple of other issues have come up just in terms of you're often told quite a lot about what you can't do, and I can give you two examples of that. And the first is the Queensland Museum with the dinosaurs there, when you've been inside and you can't touch everything, and then you go outside to see the dinosaurs and there are signs saying don't climb on the dinosaurs and don't trample the gardens, but not really much indication of what you are supposed to be doing. And so the children end up running around and around the dinosaurs, which may include the garden, I don't know. And the other one was with the Andy Warhol with the silver pillows. The staff there spent a lot of time telling the children, you know, in this room with these lovely floating silver pillows, that they couldn't hit them, which is a very kind of natural instinct for a child just to get in there and give it a whack. So that probably wraps up my first comment.
And look, I think museums have become increasingly aware of younger audiences, and I think as a parent I look to museums, and I guess that's partly because I'm familiar with them and the spaces and how you work in them, etc. They're safe spaces to take children, and you know, or I know, that they're going to have a good time. I don't quite know what they're going to do, but they're going to have a good time doing it. I'd similarly comment on the Andy Warhol. We took our two boys to the children's part probably 2 times, possibly 3 times before actually going to the exhibition itself, because it was free and because they seemed to enjoy it. We had a similar experience in the pillows. Ben, obviously in a wheelchair, is limited in what he can interact with. The pillows and the silver clad room was fantastic from that perspective for him, because it was all happening at his height and above, where he could see it. But I didn't quite get the whole thing about why we needed to be so gentle with these things. After all, they were silver, helium-filled balloons at the end of the day. And I saw the staff bringing in more when others were being taken away. So I similarly didn't quite get that, and they clearly were having a fun time in that. And Melina may want to tell us why that was the case later on. But it was a great experience. They felt safe in there. We felt safe letting them go and having fun in that.
No, well, thanks for that. Well, one of the things that we're trying to get to the bottom of is those kind of aha moments when there's a really memorable engagement between a child and an object of art or an object in a museum. And Andrew, I wonder if you can talk about an occasion where you would say there was a memorable engagement.
I'm going to use one from Queensland Museum South Bank for this one, and it is in Museum Zoo, where Adam, who's 4, and is at that stage, and I'm sure they all go through this. Animals are the big thing, and he wanted to, animal books, animals on TV, all those sorts of things. And so I took him into Museum Zoo one weekend, and the photo of the polar bear, which will pop up in a minute, I'm sure, he was enraptured by this polar bear, and I would never have picked it. But to be able to stand right up close to it, see how big it was, see it in that in that standing pose. He talked about that, and he talked about that for long after the event. It wasn't just at the thing. It came up a week later, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, he would reiterate how fantastic the polar bear was. And it just reminded me, and I guess I've worked in museums now for 20 years or more, the power of the object. To just engage people, and you don't have to do a lot in some instances. The power of the object just engages, and it was fabulous to see him do that and engage with that object and bring that back up long after the actual experience of being in the museum exhibit.
And interesting, that kind of physical relationship between the child and the object, that was important.
Yeah, I think so. Again, he'd seen a polar bear in a book and he'd seen a polar bear on TV, but the scale was all wrong, whereas in this instance he was getting the sense of scale, which I think was very much a part of what the exhibit was trying to do as well, as far as that goes.
Yeah. Well, Louise, I think you've got a different example that takes us over to UQ's Art Museum.
Yes, I took all my children to see the AES&F Last Rite video, which was displayed on 3 very large screens. And for those of you who didn't see it, it had everything really, all sorts of different imagery, but this sort of narrative which was never resolved. But the people were interacting in this sort of choreographed fighting scene where no violence ever happened. And all 3 of my children, both my 4-year-olds and my 9-year-old, were completely riveted by that because the imagery had something for everybody. I think it probably was the moving image, but it was also the power of the artwork itself. It was just so cleverly done. And, we took home a few of the catalogues and they lay around the house, and I found all of my children at various times just poring over them and looking again at the images. So I think it's just a good example of the art can speak for itself quite often.
Yeah. Well, I wonder about the relationship with staff, whether either of you could reflect on interaction between your child and museum staff, and whether there's been occasions when that's been particularly significant for the experience.
Okay, Andy.
I can relate both good and bad experiences of that. And it's not to, be overly critical. We all have bad experiences. Those things happen. But I guess it is the staff experiences that make some of these days out with our family so significant. That image on the screen there at the moment is in fact at Sovereign Hill with Ben. And I guess it's, particularly with Ben in a wheelchair, those opportunities for interaction become significantly more stilted. People sometimes don't know how to approach us, don't know how to engage with us, and Ben in particular. So where staff go out of their way to come from behind a counter or do something particular, Ben absolutely gets a thrill out of that. And it's a real, he's got a big smile on his face there. His face lights up when he gets to feel something, touch something. That it's that very much that engagement, interactivity with the object. Similarly, you saw the Futon Mountain, I think at the Kids APT. We had a ball on that Futon Mountain, but the second time we went in, we were told no, adults are not allowed to go on that. And I pushed the point a little bit, but obviously something had happened that meant that adults were no longer allowed to go on the futon mountain. But clearly we didn't even then get Ben out of his wheelchair to do that activity. But Adam engaged with us on the futon mountain as well. We all rolled down it and we had a great time. But then the second time we tried to do it, we were clearly told no. And there wasn't a lot of explanation, I guess, coming back as to why that had changed in that regard.
Do you have an experience to talk about where staff came to your rescue, maybe?
Yes, I could. We just walked through the Queensland Art Gallery one day fairly recently, and my 3 children were with me, and they all saw the Kusama balls and ran, and they've seen them before, but my son just lunged at them and ended up armpit down in ice-cold water, which was, could have been a disaster, but he was completely fine, and they had staff running with towels and mops and things, and we were made to feel completely welcome and not too embarrassed about it. So that was good.
But it's also an excellent example of engagement, total bodily engagement.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, what I'd like you to do is to put on your 2 hats now as both professionals, drawing on that experience, but also the hat of being someone who's part of a family visit. And I wonder if you could share the recommendations that you would have for museums and galleries who want to make their cultural spaces child-friendly. Who wants to start?
Well, I'm not completely sure how you would execute it, but I'm aware that from visiting the theme parks on the coast many times that perhaps we could learn something from them in terms of pace. If you go to Dreamworld, you arrive, you mentally fix the times of the shows where you might sit down and watch something, and then you can intersperse that with physical experiences, more visual experiences, kinetic experiences, and so you just pace your visit around keeping everything happening. And I suppose sometimes when you go to galleries and museums, particularly if it's a special festival day or something, you can spend a lot of time moving from one queue to the next, and that's really difficult to just keep your children under control and relaxed and calm and happily engaged under those circumstances. That's just one thing.
And I guess in building on that, I would comment on it is about the staff, and if as a parent, it is about those engagements with staff and the ability for them to be able to demonstrate, work with us on some hands-on activities. As a museum director, I know I sit there constantly and pore over budgets and other boring things, but and staff are the most expensive element of our business. They're the thing that consumes vast amounts of our time, and the temptation when you've got to make a budget work is to well, do we really need that extra visitor services officer standing there, or do we really need that explainer there all the time? We take those things away, and the experiences become lesser because of it, I think. And so my challenge, I think, as a museum director, is to ensure that the resources, we don't lose sight of, in some respects, what we're there to do, and ensure that the resources are there to provide those experiences. If someone's got the answer as to how to do that, I'd welcome some assistance in that. But it's a constant tension, I guess, in my role to do that. I'd echo the comments about pacing the visit and providing different experiences, the high-energy experiences versus the quiet experiences. That helps us plan a day and helps us manage the highs and lows of an experience, that tremendous excitement when we get there and wanting to sort of rush in and fall in the pond, but not, hopefully not. But there's a lot of energy there, and then as the day wears on, that energy starts to drop, and so it is about having some of those different paced experiences there.
I think when we were talking about it, you both made the point to me that the family visit, to be successful, it's actually about the whole visitor experience. That if we concentrate just on the objects, we actually lose the message that what makes the day work is everything from the toilets to the food, and you've very eloquently made the point about the interaction with staff being incredibly important for that. And I think there was a lovely example that one of you had about a relaxed approach to children chilling in spaces and not being under any pressure to perform. Do you want to talk about that? I think it was you, Andrew.
Oh, gosh. There you go. Look, absolutely. I think for us and for any family, I think getting out of the house with a bundle of kids, making sure they've got all the right clothes and the change of clothes and the food and the other things, it's an enormous logistic exercise to get there. And then when you get there, you're worried about, are they going to run off and where are they, etc., etc. So it is about the whole experience, and certainly I think we need to think about the whole experience. Sometimes we just think about what goes on in the exhibition zone itself, but it is the whole experience. How easy is it to get in the car park? For us, with Ben in a wheelchair, if we're parked 10 miles away, it's a real issue for us to get to the space in the first place. I've just lost the second part of that.
Oh, I think it was actually when you were showing the image of the corner. Was it your image of someone in the corner, and you were just talking about how it was a really relaxed space for children to interact?
So I don't think we should overthink some of those experiences. I guess we try, and with all due respect to all of the educators and other people in the room, we want to, we have a structure and we follow things, and we, want kids to do X and do Y here and do that there and read this and all of those things. Sometimes you can just let them explore it for themselves, and I think sometimes we tend to try and overthink some of those experiences and over-engineer those experiences. Kids and parents, I think, will create their own meanings and create their own experiences sometimes, and so there should be an opportunity just to let those things happen.
I'd agree too about the corner, where it's a space where there's something for everybody. There's not a lot of pressure to do your thing and move on. You can just gently move from one activity to the other, and you can encompass a number of a big age range in there too, and they can't get out and go anywhere, so it's kind of relaxed for the parents.
You know where they are.
You know where they are. Well, we might leave it there. I'd like to thank both of you for your insights, and perhaps at the end there'll be the opportunity for other people to also ask questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.